my name is Emma, and today we are once again talking about Shadowhunters. I have officially renamed the show Shitty Hunters because that is just how bad it is. Join the hunt to murder absolutely everyone involved in this train wreck. So I think anyone watching this video is probably pretty aware of my feelings on Shadowhunters. I've made 2 videos about it already, and if you want to see those other Shadowhunters discussions, I will link them in the description. I also live tweet the episode every single week on my Twitter, emmmabooks, same as my channel. And then afterwards, I started doing Snapchat rants about it just because, and now people are tweeting me constantly, Emma, I can't wait for your next Shadowhunter Snapchat rant. So I also make my feelings very clear after the episode on my Snapchat at m-dubz. And all those links and stuff are in the description if you want to follow along my distress with this TV show. So for the non-spoiler section, I really had much higher hopes going into this episode. I thought originally just the quality of this episode was filmed a lot better than the rest of them, but the content was even worse. Again, I'm just gonna end up developing into not being able to make spoiler-free discussions on Shadowhunters just because there's so little I can say about it that's not spoilery, but the only other thing I can say is porn! So much making out and sex. I am a 19-year-old female. I'm kind of okay with this. What I'm not okay with is watching fictional characters that should not be doing these things. I am uncomfortable. I'm so sorry for anyone who is of a younger age that has to watch this thing. I really was hoping that there would be like a slight glimpse of improvement in episode 3, but I still don't see it. We did introduce 2 new characters, Camille and Raphael. Don't know what they're doing here, but we're just gonna roll with it. Positive thing though, I really enjoyed the performance from both of them. I'm not completely content with Camille's character being Camille, but I'll talk about that more in the spoiler discussion. But I'm happy with her acting, which is like a massive improvement because I'm very dissatisfied with almost everyone's acting. Another good thing is that there were some better lines. I feel like we're getting a little bit of better dialogue than we did in the first episode, so I'm very happy about that. But there's still some disgustingly cheesy lines that should never have been written under any circumstances that kind of lessen that impact of little improvement. So when the script evolves as a whole, I will be much happier. But for now, I will take the little improvements as long as they keep making little improvements. That's really all I can think of for non-spoiler things, so I recommend going to check out Shadowhunters episode 3. I don't even know what episode 3 was called. Probably should have figured that out before making this video. Go watch that episode and then come back and we can yell about this because that's all these discussions really are. It's just me yelling about my feelings. Bye, non-spoiler people! Okay, so the first thing I automatically get out of this episode is that, again, we're taking a plot line from the failed movie and adapting it into the TV show that we want to be successful. Why does everybody and their mother want the Mortal Cup? There is nothing that vampires can get out of the Mortal Cup. It doesn't make sense. It's for Shadowhunter use only. That's why it's the fucking Shadowhunter's Cup. You need angel blood or Shadowhunter blood for it to work. It's for creating more Shadowhunters. Vampires can't do that. Valentine wants the Mortal Cup because it creates new Shadowhunters. So he wants an army of new, pure Shadowhunters. I just don't understand what the vampires are going to get out of it. I understand that it can control demons, but logically it just doesn't make sense to me why an object that is clearly a Shadowhunter object is going to be able to be used by vampires and other downworlders. I really just want to know why we keep taking things from the failure of the movie. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Sure, I don't have any experience in TV production, but why do you want to take things from something that sucked and failed and left people unhappy and didn't go anywhere? Every single episode, there's something else from that movie that's making its way into this TV show, and I just want it to stop. I'm a little happier with Alec in this episode. I still don't think he's showing the level of emotion that Alec really needs to. I did like that line that's like, what are you, her spokesperson? I think that was Alex's line. I wrote it down, like just the quote with no context, so I don't really know what I'm talking about. But I really like that line, and I do think that Matthew Daddario is making more of an effort as an actor. I just still don't see the emotion from him. I'm seeing emotion from every other character except for him. So that's a little disappointing to me, but there is an improvement with his acting. Another thing I'm really happy about, wow, I didn't even realize that I had this many good things to talk about. I'm really happy with Simon and Raphael's dynamic already. I feel that in the books they have such a unique relationship to each other, and I feel like already it has a really nice foundation in the show. While we don't see a lot of it and like they've just met, I really think there's a good starting point for them to develop into what Simon and Raphael are in the books. I just think that their banter is really great, and like just the way they interact was done really well. Raphael's a character within himself. I wasn't totally crazy about the actor when he was first released. Jace, and like when we were first getting into the episode, I did have to like kind of adjust to this new Raphael just because I'm used to thinking of a 15-year-old having all of these qualities, and now it's obviously a much more mature adult, which is not a problem. I think he's less annoying than he is in the books, which I don't have a problem with that change because I don't like annoying characters. But I already feel that sense of leadership that Raphael just carries with him in the books, and I think it's really important that that is established already. I want to touch upon the scene with the Seraph blade. The scene that we all just like simultaneously vomited across America because it was so terrible. Jace pulled that cheesy move that's in like almost every romance movie ever, where the guy is trying to teach the girl a skill and he like puts her arm around her for like baseball and golf, but apparently now it applies to swords. And just the whispering. It was really weird. It could have been done really well. Like that could have been a good scene for Jace and Clary to show some improvement in their relationship, and I just feel like it faltered. I did like what Jace was saying though. I think the whole part about being a shadow hunter and it's something that's pumping through you was a really great addition because that's what being a shadow hunter is, so I thought they just grasped that better, but I was way less focused on the dialogue and more focused on the fact that it just made me very uncomfortable. So I thought the interaction was weird, I thought the dialogue was better, and I thought that that scene would have been great if they were like in a training room in the Institute, because it's clearly not in the books. So I felt like the graveyard was just like a weird place to be groped by a man you met 2 days ago. Am I wrong in saying that? Just another example of how they're rushing their relationship, because Clary and Jace don't touch like at all. Like they talk and they fight and they argue and they banter, but they're not that close yet. And I mean, we saw that in the previous episode when they were holding hands. But that's that scene. Going back to the vampires, I really like Camille already. I think she's one of my favorite characters in the show. It's so loud out. I'm so sorry. This is what I get for wanting to use natural light for once. I think the fatal flaw in her character at the moment is she isn't showing that level of sophistication that Camille has. Now, Camille isn't even supposed to be here yet, for those of you who haven't gotten that far in the books yet. She doesn't come in yet. I don't have as much of a problem with it now after watching this episode. Camille is like a century old, I think, because she's older than Magnus. I just think that that sophistication that comes with Camille's age and like that etiquette and that eloquence and that grace isn't being shown, and I just feel like that's a very vital part of Camille's character. I mean, there's one scene in the books where Magnus is like, Camille makes you want to do things for her, and I don't see that yet. But Camille is also a raging bitch, and I feel like this actress is doing a really good job with that. Like, I hate her already, and I love characters that I can love to hate. Camille is already one of those characters for me. But like with every other actor in the show, I just need a little bit more from everyone to just convince me that this is a clear representation of this character in the books. One thing about this vampire thing, why can they freeze people? What? I'm sitting there and I'm very confused. I'm just expecting Raphael to be like, Camille, where's my super suit? They are also focusing more on what Raphael refers to as the encanto, or it's probably more commonly known as the compulsion of vampires, which is addressed in the books very briefly. It's not totally like addressed, so I feel like a lot of people might be surprised by it. It's definitely more shown in the show, but I don't have a problem with it. I think that's a really good asset that they can use for the vampires. Why am I saying so many positive things? I'm really shocked because I didn't write down this many positive things. So I just scrolled down in my notes section of my phone that's reserved for my Shadowhunters notes, and I realized that as I'm saying that I have all these good things to say, we're getting to the terrible parts. So while someone's probably thinking, why is she saying that she hates the show? She's saying a lot of positive things. This is where my problem is. There's so much unnecessary sexual attention in this show, and I feel like it did fucking nothing for this episode. Quite a lot of conversations in the comments on my last video and on Twitter about how I feel about Izzy's character and how I feel that she's over-sexualized by the producers of this show. This isn't me slut-shaming her. This is me saying that the producers and writers of this show who make the executive decisions on how to present characters are completely misinterpreting Isabel Lightwood and what she's about, and her best qualities are being sheltered by this era of provocativeness and promiscuousness that she is expressing in the show. That being said, Isabel Lightwood would never sleep with someone for information. I don't care if she's dating the person or not. That's not what Isabel Lightwood is about. She can get any piece of information she wants by looking at a guy the right way. So why do we need to make it this over-exaggerated sex scene about her getting information out of Meliorn? It's unnecessary, and that's what the changes in the show are. They are unnecessary. I feel that that whole scene did nothing but make Isabel Lightwood the object of sexual attention in this show, and I have a big problem with that. Then we move on to Simon making out with Camille, which never happens in the books. Ever. They hate each other, okay? I understand that Simon is under the compulsion, but again, it did nothing for the episode. Is it just showing that Camille has power over mundanes? Because that's all I really got from it. I will admit, the scene with the Bloody Mary original recipe was very funny. That's one of the scenes that I'm talking about when I say that a lot of the lines were better in the show. But everything around that, that whole part about Simon and Camille making out and stuff, I didn't like it. I'm gonna put my hand up because I'm gonna talk about City of Ashes. So if you haven't read City of Ashes, just mute me or something until my hand goes down. I'm assuming that this is how they are going to make Simon a vampire because he wasn't the rat, so he didn't bite Raphael. I honestly wasn't paying attention enough at this point because I was too caught off guard that they were making out to see if Camille bit Simon or if Simon bit Camille. I'm assuming something like that happened, or maybe Camille put her blood in the Bloody Mary and that's why she gave it to Simon. I think that this is the point at which Simon is going to be a vampire, and I prefer the way it happened in the books. That's all it comes down to. Come back, City of Ashes people, we can keep discussing Shadowhunters. And then we move on to Clary and Jace's perspective, where they're in this like vampire bar, which I don't have a problem with. I think adding a scene like that could have been great, but of course they didn't do it justice like anything else in this show. Clary would trip on her Converse shoelace on the way over to this guy, but she's not even wearing Converse, so. Realistically, Clary would probably tell Jace to go and flirt over with that guy, and Jace would do it, and I would have preferred that scene much better. Point of my frustration with this whole middle portion of the episode, because that's what it was. It was every other scene was somebody making out, somebody having sex, somebody doing something that their character would never do, is that I pay for Cablevision, I don't pay for porn. Now let's move on. I'm glad they kept in the motorbike. I don't like the way that they got the motorbike. It was so cool in the book for them to drive off of the top of the Hotel d'Amour in a freaking flying motorbike. It was awesome. And Jace dramatically punches this vampire, like dramatically slow-mo, terrible special effects, punches the guy for the keys, and they go off into this like video game graphic world as they're driving through the streets of New York City, and it was terribly done. Could have been so cool. So much potential that just didn't come through. More terrible lines. This whole discussion that Clary and Jace are having, where I think it was about Simon and Camille and how Simon thinks he's in love with Camille because he's under the compulsion. Like, Jace is trying to explain that to her, if I'm correct. And then Clary, like, asks him, like, if that's what it's like or something, and Jace is like, I don't know, I've never been. And then automatically I'm just like, oh, that was the noise I made. And then Clary's like, you've never been compelled? And Jace is like, no. Or I don't even think he says no, but it's like clearly obvious that's not what he meant. And she's like, oh, you've never been in love. It's gross and cringy and cheesy, and why? Terrible way to introduce Jace's vulnerability. Does absolutely no justice to the levels of Jace that I love. I'm so mad at this representation of him. It's disgusting. I actually think this part came before, but I clearly didn't pay very good attention to this video. I was too busy complaining about it, which is my fault. When they're talking about like Clary needs to save Simon or something, and Jace is like, he's not worthy of you. That whole scene was absolutely terrible. That's really the only way to sum it up. Better positive thing. I'm really enjoying Alec and Izzy's relationship. I feel that there is definitely room for improvement and that they could have more of a brotherly, sisterly relationship, but we saw more of them in this episode, which I really liked. You know, it's that whole scene where I feel like they're underground the Hotel d'Amour and they're like trying to find a way in without disturbing all of the vampires. If I remember correctly, they were talking a lot about Alec and Jace without actually revealing it, which I think is a good way to foreshadow that whole situation. I just feel like we got a lot more out of them because we saw them together more and they were having like a real conversation together that felt very brotherly and sisterly, and while there's still so much room for improvement on their part, I really think that they're going in a good direction with Alec and Isabel's relationship. Oh geez, it's like every time I say something good, there's another terrible thing underneath it. These vampire graphics. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm a CGI snob. Like, watching season 1 of New Who bothers me just because of the graphics. I have very high standards for the CGI that I watch, and Shadowhunters is so below that this ridiculous bursting into flames green screen effect. What is even going on here? I could do that exact effect and probably do it better with Windows Movie Maker in like 2010. I just feel like there were so many other ways that they could show a vampire dying without it being that cheesy and ill-edited. There's just something in every single episode that is just adding to the badness of the editing of this show, and I don't want to watch it just because the quality of the editing is so bad. Now we're moving on to another thing I like. I feel like I've been very back and forth with this episode. I really like that scene when they're actually fighting the vampires, not because of the editing or the quality of the graphics of it, but when Clary is fighting with them, which I have a problem with because Clary held a Seraph blade for the first time 2 days ago. But I like how like the other vampire from before comes in and like they're talking and he's like, you really know how to hurt a guy. And then Clary just kicks him in the balls and is like, I guess I do know how to hurt a guy. Like that is something that Clary Faye would do, and I'm really happy that they put that little aspect of her character into the show. Oh my god, more horrible things, what a surprise. The fight scenes are filmed really badly. They're edited very badly. I really like what Christine from Eliminated Books said about this in her like first discussion, is that they look like they're trying to hide something. It's edited so you don't get too long of a look at what's going on. It's like all over the place and the angles are weird. All of everything that goes into editing those fight scenes are really bad. The Hotel d'Amour doesn't look like a hotel. Am I the only one that feels that way? I feel like the only room that we got that had any hotel-esque stuff in it is where Simon and Camille were. Everything else is just super industrial, and like I can understand if they're in like the kitchens or the basement or the maintenance rooms, but I feel like if you're marketing it as the Hotel d'Amour, wouldn't you want to show it as a hotel? I was just really excited to see like the big chandeliers that are all broken and the staircases that are like crumbling because they are so old and ill-maintained. I just felt like the set of the Hotel d'Amour could have been fantastic, and they went with the easy option, which I feel like is what they're doing with a lot of this show. Okay, another thing I really want to address, which is probably the most ridiculous part of this episode, is when Clary and the Shadowhunters actually meet up with Raphael, Simon, and I don't remember if Camilla's there, or maybe she was there, I don't really know. But it's when they first see each other after being apart this whole episode, and Clary has the audacity to ask if Simon is okay, while Simon has a knife to his neck. I'm sorry, who thought that was a good idea? Of course he's not okay! Clary is not that stupid. No one is that stupid. Careless writing. That's what I get from that scene. One thing I did like about the ending of this episode is that moment that Clary and Simon have at the end when they're out and they're on the roof of the Hotel d'Amour. Simon says, I'd do anything for you, and Clary says, you don't have to die for me, and Simon is like, I'd rather not do that. It is such a classic Simon response to that, which Alberto Rossendi, again for the third time in these discussions, is doing such a good job with, but I just felt like that was a very Clary and Simon moment. That is the moments we live for in their friendship that we see in the books, and they transferred it into the TV show, and I'm really happy with that. Another thing that I didn't like, I am so all over the place with this episode. Am I the only one that has a severe problem with Jace and Alec's parabatai relationship? I was discussing this with Miss Cassie, and she was like, why is there even a need for a discussion about trust? They are one. They are one person. They trust each other completely. They are bound to each other forever. Why are they talking about trust? That should not even be a topic being discussed between them. I'm so happy Cassie brought that up to me. I also just feel like all they do is fight. And I understand that every character in the Mortal Instruments, they all argue with each other. But I feel that all of Jace and Alex's interactions are just Alec trying to be like, Jace, like, lay off Clary, like, stop it, get away from her. And then Jace is like, get away from me, like, you don't understand, like, leave it alone, Alec. I feel like they're not connecting the way that two people do. The way that parabatai is expressed in the books is that they move as one. It looks like they're moving together. You see qualities from one in the other, and there's none of that in the show. They're saying that they're parabatai, but there is nothing that actually shows that there's something special about that label. They argue all the time in City of Bones. I'm not disregarding that whatsoever. It's the fact that when they are fighting and they're arguing and they're having a disagreement, there's no look that just lets them know that even though we're arguing about this, we're still brothers and we're still one and we're still the perfect match of warriors. I don't see that at all, and it's a big problem for me. I love how there's some things that I'm just screaming about, and there's some things that I'm so disappointed with. I just can't even express that much emotion because I'm just so sad to see that kind of adaptation. One more thing that I don't really want to spend too much time talking about, because I've only found out about this from tweets because I stopped paying attention to the very end of the episode because all I had to do was just tweet about how much I was feeling things. The memory demon. According to everyone in the trailer for the next episode, Clary's memories are in with memory demon. Why? You know how I said that the producers a lot of times take the easy way out? They're taking the most complicated way out they can. Clary's memories are not with anyone. They're with her. They're just covered and they're unraveling. Well, I guess in the book she goes to Magnus and Magnus tells her that there's nothing I can do. She has her memories. They're just covered and they unravel across the books. There's really nothing that suggests that she ever really lost her memories because they're not lost. They're within her. She just can't access them at the moment. But throughout the story, she does. Why do we have to add this whole other plot line where we have so much room to put in actual things and we're putting in something so pointless? I'm really confused about this because to me it totally contradicts what they did in the first episode where Magnus takes Clary's memories or at least shows him doing magic. Now, the thing about that is he sending it to the memory demons? Because that's totally in violation of the Accords and Magnus would be killed by the Clave. No associating with demons. Ever. So how did this demon get Clary's memories from Magnus? And why? You cannot convince me that Magnus willingly gave Clary's memories to the memory demon. So the only logical way for this demon to have Clary's memories is if he sought it out himself. Lots of questions going through my mind here. First of all, how does this demon even know Clary exists? No one in the shadow world knows that she exists except for Jocelyn, Luke, and Magnus. Secondly, if he knows that Clary exists, how did he know that Clary's memories are lost? Thirdly, if he knows that Clary's memories are lost, how does he know that there's anything significant in it for him? So many open plot holes here that I don't think the show just has the capacity to cover. That's it for my discussion on episode 3 of Shadowhunters. Please leave me your comments below. I am so anticipating seeing what you guys thought about this episode. I personally thought it was, if not just as bad, worse than the other 2 episodes. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!